Hello everyone, this is Dr. Achal and I welcome you all in our subject module titled as Services Marketing. Earlier also we have discussed out the concept of the service distribution and we have dealt in a previous discourse that how the accessibility and the availability of the services that is being proposed by the service firm are two of the important pillars to make a proper disposition of the offerings which they are trying to deal into it. And apart from it, we have discussed that how the people, if the people are suffering with certain kind of limitations, if the people and the buyers are suffering with certain kind of disabilities, how we as a service provider, we have to like give them a personalized approach, give them a customized approach in terms of the accessibility factor. That personalization, the customization is being talked of in the sense of the physical facilities and the physical, the physical facilities should be chalked off so that they can be providing, they can be coming out with a greater appeal for it. Now, in today's discussion, we will be moving with the other elaborative concept that is all being related in a services distribution, and here we will be dealing with how the the different components of the distribution channel and the distribution strategy has to be taken into account by the service firm, and that will be elaborated in today's discussion. So, moving on with the slide. Now, this slide says that the communication and the language, as we have said that in our previous discourse we have dealt with accessibility and the adequacy of the proposition of the services. Now, in today's discussion we will be saying that with regard to the semantic barriers, with regard to the communication, with regard to how you are communicating as in a service firm, how you are communicating with your target audience is a very an important essential task to take into consideration. It is a very important task that has to be fulfilled and that has to be taken into account by every service organization. So, the communication and the language, here it says that the services must be accessible to the people who speak different languages or who have communication impairments. This includes providing multilingual support, sign language interpretations and materials in accessible formats. Clear inclusive communication ensures that everyone can access important information, for example, captions. Captions provide for promotional videos. Multiple communication options, provide at least 2 communication options such as phone number or email address. So, communication, that is, here we are saying that the services must be accessible to people who speak different languages and or who have communication impairments. Definitely, if we as a provider of the services, we are sending you out something, as a sender, we should be able enough to communicate effectively towards proper disposition of the services to our end users, to our target customers. And if the receiver is not in the same consonance in which you are trying to propose out your services, definitely they will find a difficulty to comprehend and to assess that what you are trying to say. And as earlier we have discussed the same fact that there can be a certain category of the consumers and the buyers who are facing out certain limitations in the form of the visual impairment, in the form of the there are certain kind of there are physical disabilities, they are suffering from certain physical disabilities, providing them in a ramp walk, providing them in a ramp, or providing them in a wheelchair, or giving them in a signages or the braille languages. There can be certain alternative options to move in for. Here also we are saying that for the proper communication, for proper and effective communication, there can be certain options to look into for, like the multi-languages support can be given, the sign languages playing in a very important and a prominent role to those people who are suffering from visual impairment. There can be translators, the interpreters, the services of the interpreters can be taken into account for making it a proper disposition and the proper deliverance of the services to your receiver, to your end buyers and the end consumers. The materials should be in accessible formats. Definitely the core components which are acting as an ingredient towards the offerings that you are trying to propose, their core components and the ingredients, they should be very much being accessible enough in terms of the format or the usage pattern. Like certain apps are there which are very much being handy enough to those people who are suffering with certain kind of visual impairments. They can go and they can just be able enough to use those apps which are in the virtual format, and they will be just helping them out to come out within a certain kind of certain kind of things that they want to take upon. Like similarly, for proper delivery of the services, the communication should be clear, inclusive, so that everyone can access the important information, like providing captions for promotional videos. Many times we have seen that it is the videos are coming out, and if we are not the videos are also being translated. If certain videos are being channelized, they are being drafted in a certain language which is not being which is not very much being prominent enough for each and every people in the in a chosen target area, then we can come out with a proper effective solution in terms of giving a universal language that is more being accessible enough to each and every section of the society, and that is in the form of the title options being readable enough in the videos or in the lectures or in any kind of title content that we are trying to assimilate in for. So, these captions will be helping us out to have a greater appeal in terms of understandability factor, in terms of the comprehension factor. We are also saying that multiple communication options can be given, that is providing at least 2 communication options such as phone numbers or email address. Now, it is very worthy enough to talk about this communication that is being defined enough in terms of the in a written way. We are very much being profound enough towards using out the email address, through the digital devices. Similarly, the phone numbers which are giving you a greater access and availability and adequacy 24/7 hours. And we can communicate it verbally with the help of the telephone numbers, or even if we can draft and dispose out of a message in the form of the fax facility is also there. So, there can be alternative multiple communication channels, and depending upon the chosen target population, you may go in for choosing a particular mode of the communication channels for communicating and communicating about the delivery of the services more effectively to your target audience. If the target audience are not, if they are falling out in a certain kind of specific disability. So, the use of the multiple options, it is more being prominent enough here. In addition to that, in a normal course of action, even then in the normal course of action, we are frequently taking the use of these kind of devices, that is the uses of the emails and the telephone numbers as in a contact, and then an effective way to get communicated with your target audience, or get communicated or with your other people who are there residing in the society, so as to inform them, as to create awareness amongst the offerings that you are trying to propose into the market. Now, this slide, that is affordability. It says that affordability is a very key aspect of accessibility. The services may be available, but they are too expensive. They are effectively inaccessible to many. The pricing models should take into account diverse income levels, ensuring all socioeconomic groups can benefit. It refers that prices of the services meets the client's income and ability to pay. Now, the affordability, a very important component of the accessibility factor, it says that the services should be available, but if they are very much being too expensive, if the prices of the offerings that you have established, that you have crafted, they are very much being costly enough, and they are not, we as a buyer, we as a consumer, we are not feeling at ease to sacrifice our hard-earned income towards the purchase and the consumption of those services, then we will not be willing enough to move in towards the assimilation of those intangible benefits. So, earlier also in the deliberation or in the session of the pricing strategy, we have discussed the same thing, that is the pricing strategy that we as a service organization are trying to establish and determine, that should be in consonance with either the demand factor, that should be in alignment with the cost factor, or that should be in consonance with the competitors' parity. So, taking into account all these factors, that is the demand factor, the cost factor and the competitors' parity, we as a service provider, we have to just ensure that the determination and the establishment of the pricing policies and the strategies should be reasonable enough from the customer's perspective, because it is the customers over whom we are targeting out efforts. And if the consumers and the customers are finding it difficult to move in for the purchase and the consumption of these services, they will not be willing enough to sacrifice their hard-earned income towards the consumption of those services. So, it means that is the pricing policies should be reasonable enough in terms of meeting out the expectations of the consumers and the buyers, and at the same point of time should be qualitative enough and should be reasonable in terms of the prices factor. Now, we are seeing that the pricing models should take into account the diverse income levels, ensuring that all socioeconomic groups can definitely, this is the same point that we have reiterated in our earlier discourse. We have said that the pricing strategy, we as a service organization, we have to look into for providing another equitable pricing strategies, which is very much in consonance with the competitors' pricing strategy, because we are living in this competitive scenario. We cannot just come out within such an approach which is very much being odd one out, or which is very much being not in consonance with the meeting with the expectations and aspirations of your target population. But there should be a certain kind of parity with regard to the pricing strategies which the competitors are trying to float in the market area, because we know that each and every customer, they are more being aware enough, they are more being informed, and definitely the marketers and the manufacturers, they are also very much being informed in terms of the different variants which the one particular brand is trying to propose, in view of the different coming of the different sub variants of the same brand, keeping into account the different kind of changes that are happening with regard to the psychographic features and the psychographic elements from the customer's point of view. So, all these factors, all these variables are affecting the purchase decision of the consumers and the buyers, and before establishment of any pricing model, we have to just ensure that the diverse income group, the people who are falling in the diverse income group, the people who are living in the society falling in the different diverse income group, their willingness should be taken into account, their willingness in terms of the purchase process should be taken into account, and then only you as a marketer will be acting as a successful marketer to cater on to the divergent needs and the aspirations of these set of people. Now, the affordability factor is also gives you the fact that if the pricing is equitable and is justifiable enough, then definitely the different customers falling in the different economic brackets, the customers or the consumers who are being talked of as potential customers, they will be finding it a greater ease and accessibility, and affordability will also be created to them to move in for the purchase and the consumption of your brands as compared to the other rival offerings which are there operating in the environment. So, this is what is being talked of in this slide. Now, moving to the next slide, this availability overview. Earlier also we have said that it's affordability, we are talking about the affordability. Now, this slide says about the availability overview, and it's all being associated that whether the service exists, where the service exists, when it is being needed. This includes the geographic distribution, sufficient staffing and the availability during the convenient hours. The service availability ensures that people have the opportunity to use them at the right time without any kinds of discrimination taking place. Now, the availability, as is being said here in the slide, that the availability refers to whether the service exists, where it is existing and where it is being needed. The geographic distribution, staffing and availability. Yes, definitely the geographical location of the people. In our previous discourse, we have said that we as a marketer, we have to firstly locate that where are our target audience being located enough, where are being suitably being located enough. We as a service organization, whether we are being able enough to cater on towards meeting those chosen target area, their geographic location to be taken into account, whether we as a service organization, we are having proper and adequate manpower and the employees who are acting to take out the position of the different functional areas. Even if in the marketing functional area, who are the people who are taking into account or who are very much being worthy enough to look into the aspect of the implementation part, that is the operative level of the managers, or who are the people who are in direct touch with the customers, who are the employees who are acting as a frontline managers, the people who are acting as a back-end staff, because at many point of time, in many of the instances, the customers and the consumers, they are evaluating the quality of the services with the help of the by checking and by gauging out the performance and the dress code, the etiquettes, the appearance of the people who are trying to deliver you out the services. There can be many instances, and so it is very much being imperative enough for each and every service organization to just look into account or take into account that these people who are acting as a frontline staff, they have to be dressed up very properly. Their behavioral etiquettes should be taken into account. Proper etiquette should be given. They should be delivering out the proper etiquettes while delivering out the services. The courteous behavior should be there. The welcoming attitude, the helping attitude should be there. Their psychographic features in terms of the beliefs and the attitudes and the opinions should be very much being optimistic in nature. A certain conducive atmosphere, the aesthetic beauty, the decor, their courteous smile, their behavioral pattern, the way at a certain point of time, their approach to help out the customers and the consumers. In some of the instances, going out of the way to give them a proper appeal, to give them a proper accessibility. Now, these are the factors which are creating a learning factor for the consumers, which are creating a very enriching experience to cherish upon from the customer's perspective, from the consumer's perspective. And definitely, if the consumers are very much being cherished enough, if they have gotten the feeling of cherishment, if they have treasured that moment, and definitely that cherished moment will go a long way towards creating out a binding relationship with you as in a service organization, and definitely eventually with the passage of time that will create a brand loyalty. The customers will be creating a brand loyalty, and that will lead towards a repetitive purchase decision. And in addition to the repetitive purchase decision, it will also be acting as creating a favorable image for your organization, for your brand, in terms of propagating the idea of your offerings from word mouth to mouth, or advertisement is being done by the customers, by the consumers themselves. In a viral way, the buzz marketing can be done if they are very much being delighted enough from the consumption of your services. So, it means that is sufficient staffing and the adequacy. There should be an adequate staffing in terms of the manpower deployment by the service organization, and those deployment of the manpower should be effective enough in the sense of their different kind of appeals, in the sense of their qualitative features, in the sense of their quantitative features. And definitely we are saying that the availability during the convenient hours, now this convenient hours is all being related when the customers are in need of the assimilation and the consumption of the services at certain odd times. You as a service marketer and you as a provider should be available to help them out in terms of providing out the services 24/7. And definitely there are certain essential services, there are certain kind of services which are falling in the category of the essentials, and here the service marketers, they are helping the customers and the consumers to assimilate out these essential services 24/7. I have discussed earlier also, like the services that is being provided by the medical practitioners, the services of the educational sector, the services of the defense sector, and many more, like telecommunication is there, power sectors, they are offering you the services 24/7. And then it's being said that service availability ensures that people have the opportunity to use them at the right time without any kinds of discrimination taking place. Now, availability of the services, it's also being said in the sense that if the people are trying to use them at a desired time, you as a marketer and a service provider, you should be able to provide accessibility by providing out these consumption of the services at the proper time whenever they are finding out in a convenient time. So, because we know that the production and the consumption of the services, they are happening at the same point of time, we are not being able enough to store it to get used at a later course of action. So, if the production and the consumption are happening simultaneously, we as a service provider or the organization, we have to give them a proper appeal in terms of the availability factor. If the customers are not willing enough to consume out your services at this particular point of time, we as a service provider, we should be giving a greater appeal by providing them these kind of offerings whenever the customers and the consumers are in a need. That is the proper right time, the disposition of the services at the proper right time when the customers are in a need. And this factor is that is the factor of the accessibility and the availability very more being prominent enough, because if it is being regularized, it is being channelized in a diligent way, definitely the discrimination factor will not happen, and each and every customers and the consumers will have a greater appeal to cherish your offerings as compared to the rivals. Now moving to the next slide. Now this geographic availability, it's all being said that the geographic availability is very much being essential enough to ensure that services reach both urban and the rural populations. Many regions, especially the rural regions, they suffer from the lack of the basic services like the healthcare and the education. Bridging this gap requires investment in infrastructure and the mobile service units. Now the geographic availability is essential for ensuring the services to be reached to both the urban and the rural populations. We know that depending upon the geographic zone, we can have primarily we can have 4 zones to talk of, but even if in a one particular selected zone, we can experience that there are certain categories of the customers who are falling in the rural population, there are certain categories of the customers who are living in the urban counterpart. So the different categories and the different sets of the population living in the different zones, the zone is same, definitely the zone is same, but their categorization in terms of the residential aspect, in terms of their variation of the accessibility, adequacy, in terms of their accessibility of the different essential equipments, different essential facilities are differently being defined in the different zones, the different areas, like the people who are residing in the rural areas, their living style, their consumption bracket, their aspirations are different as compared to the people who are residing in the urban areas. So we as a marketer, we have to just ensure that whether the urban people, how much willing they are, what are their economic determinants, what are the psychographic features, and what are the social determinants, how the social determinants are creating a profound influence towards the purchase and the assimilation of the services which they are moving for, and how in contrast to it, or as compared to it, we know that the urban population, they are more being aware, their living style is being different, as strikingly they are having a different kind of beliefs to talk of, their psychographic features, their attitudes, their opinions, the thought process are being differently being defined as compared to the thought process that is being generated by the rural populations. And if we as a service organization, we have to cater on to the needs and the demands of these different set of people, so that is the people who are residing in the rural area and the people who are residing in the urban area. We have to come out with a proper solution in which we are finding out that the people who are residing in the rural population, they are lacking out certain, they are lacking out the assimilation and the consumption of certain services which are very much being essential in nature. We have many times we have discussed out the theory of the Abraham Maslow, the need hierarchy of the Abraham Maslow, and we know that for the purpose of gratifying and for the purpose of living a fulfilling life, we as a marketer, we have to just ensure that there should be a proper gratification of the physiological needs or the biological needs which are very much being prominent enough for each and every living being in the universe. So fulfillment of these biological needs, whether the people are living in the rural or the urban area, is very important for everyone. And here as a service organization, we have to come out within a proper infrastructure facilities, we have to come out with the proper creation and the deliverance of the goods, the services, that is goods which are more being pronounced in terms of their intangibility factor, and the services and the offerings having a greater ability to cater on to the needs and the demands of these rural population. There can be an area wherein the geographic availability and the accessibility can also be defined in terms of like providing them a good infrastructural facilities, certain portable facilities, like if the rural population is not like this particular instance is very much rare in nature, but there are certain villages in the rural areas wherein we are witnessing that they are not having a proper basic hygiene facility, not using out lavatories. So this kind of mobile, kind of the municipal corporation is not there in their areas, operating in their areas. So, we can just be able to provide them a greater access with the help of the mobile lavatories, and these kind of things can be given out to them. Similarly, if they are not having a greater accessibility in terms of the uses of their services, the mobile operators are not working there effectively, we can come out with a proper solution towards establishing service, certain kind of service operator should come out, even if the public sector, the government should work upon towards these areas in which they are focusing out their concentration and efforts towards the establishment of the basic infrastructural facilities towards these rural areas, and towards giving them a proper ease by constructing proper roads, and by giving them proper municipal facilities, by giving them proper infrastructural facilities in terms of education. And definitely the government is making a good effort, they are making a major initiatives are being they are being created and they are being implemented on the part of the government, working at the state, working at the central, to come out with a proper solution, to give them a proper appeal and affordability to these kind of rural population and to these kind of rural people who are residing in the rural areas. And now the infrastructural facilities, the creation and the establishment of the good infrastructural facilities, the robust infrastructural facilities is the need of the hour, and government is already, they are trying to take care of this particular factor. They are making out a move, the marketers are trying to take out a move towards this aspect. The government is making different kind of campaigns, the different kind of incentives are being given out to the marketers to come out with a proper solution, to give a greater appeal, to create a greater affordability to the rural population, like the opening of the schools, the basic need to get the education, the opening and the establishment of the schools by the government. Similarly, the private sectors are also being encouraged enough to come forward, and most of the private educational institutions, they are trying to fulfill out the responsibility of the corporate social responsibility, and they are trying to establish some of the schools in the rural areas free of cost to provide education, which is very much being crucial enough in today's revolving world to the underprivileged people or to the underprivileged children. So, now this geographic availability and the geographic accessibility it is being said that here both the sectors, that is not only the private sector, the public sector, they are just definitely the public sectors are coming out with a greater move, but not only the public sectors, the private sectors are also coming out, and the private organization, the service organization, the private entrepreneurs, they are coming out with their own approach towards fulfillment of the corporate social responsibility, and they are providing out a greater availability of the use of the basic essential services to these kind of rural populations by either establishment of the schools or the trust or charitable trust or the establishment of the NGOs, or towards providing the free education facilities or giving them a greater appeal in terms of the establishment of the hospitals, good hospitals, and the educational sectors. So, this was all about in today's discussion, that is we have dealt with the distribution aspect in a more elaborated way. We have dealt with how the greater appeal can be given to the target audience, and not only to the target audience, how the benefit can be given out to the society at large by providing out your offerings to be catered on by to the to be catered on not only to the specified people, to the specified rural, to the specified target population, but providing the benefits to the society at large by disposing of your services, having out a greater appeal, in terms of the affordability factor, in terms of the adequacy factor, in terms of the geographic availability factor. So, with this we are ending up this session here only, and I hope that you people have understood the concept of the availability, the adequacy, and the accessibility, and how the marketers are channelizing out their efforts towards meeting out these expectations. So, till then, stay safe and stay blessed. We will be meeting it out in the next discourse more elaborately towards defining the other concepts of the service marketing. So, till then, stay safe, and we will be meeting again. Thank you all for joining.